Velodyne Acoustics is one of the few companies that has focused its efforts on one narrow audio segment. Founded in Silicon Valley in 1983, this American company is solely and exclusively engaged in the production of subwoofers. Today I suggest you to take a look at their most inexpensive subwoofer, an entrance ticket to the world of Velodyne. David Hall, founder and first chief engineer of the company, introduced the ULD-18 subwoofer to the world in 1983, which played deeper and louder than anything else, and at the same time had 20-30 times less distortion thanks to a new revolutionary servo system technology based on a specially designed accelerometer, which helped to achieve perfect control over the subwoofer diaphragm, and it revolutionized bass reproduction. This technology is still in use today, but Velodyne holds over 197 other subwoofer construction patents. And by the way, not so long ago, the company changed its registration. In 2019, Velodyne was taken over by their old German distributor. Now their headquarters is in Hamburg. The Velodyne lineup consists of 5 lines of subwoofers, and today we will talk about a model called Impact X10. This can be said to be their initial and most affordable subwoofer from the basic Impact line, where there is another model with an index of 12. These numbers, 10 and 12, as you might have guessed, stands for driver size, and here is the smaller of the two Impacts. So what it is like? Despite its lowest position in the Velodyne hierarchy, this is quite a high-quality, complex subwoofer with interesting features, quite stuffed with electronics. And at the same time, it has its own oddities, but it can generate a lot of sound. How good is its sound? We'll talk about this later, of course. For now, let's take a look at the design. The Impact 10 is a mid-size subwoofer with a 20mm thick MDF cabinet in a nice matte finish that comes in either white or black. The finish is not that luxury, there are no decoration in this look, the body is muted, but everything is done quite well. It feels like this cube is extremely solid, monolithic, and looking ahead, I'll say that during operation, even at high volume levels, this case doesn't vibrate, remaining absolutely serene. The design uses a front-mounted 10-inch long-throw driver combined with a bass reflex port on the bottom. The speaker cone is made of reinforced paper. It has a 4-layer voice coil with a diameter of 52 mm. Just below the driver you can see a round window of its LED display, which shows the volume and parameters at the time of setup. By the way, even when a grill is installed on the front panel, you'll see this display through it, so it's convenient to control it with the remote control. Now about what brings the most controversial things in this device, about the rear panel. The first thing that will catch your eye is the low-tech clamp-on acoustic terminals, like on an old music center from the 90s. What? I really do not understand why they are still installing them these days. On the one hand, the desire to provide the ability to receive a signal from a high-level output is probably meritorious, it's just like in more serious audiophile models. But at the same time, when you try to insert your thick audiophile speaker cables into it, you'll run into a problem. These terminals will accept and hold only fairly thin cables. So technically Velodyne gives you the ability of a high-level connection, but in fact it doesn't. They provide you with a Schrödinger connection. But in fact we don't need this, consider it an atavism and an oddity of this model. After all, the main input terminals we have here are RCA, which you can receive a line signal from an amp or a receiver, or use one right RCA as an LFE input for a home theater system. In addition, on this panel you'll find 2 small buttons. The top one inverts the phase, and the bottom one allows the subwoofer to either be permanently on or turn on automatically after a signal is detected at one of its inputs. If there is no signal for more than 8 minutes, Impact 10 will automatically go to sleep mode. Well, on the right side of the panel you'll find two knobs which rotate with gentle clicks, so it's pretty nice to measure the adjustment offset using them. One is responsible for the volume level and the other for the cutoff frequency of its low-pass crossover. It is adjustable in the range from 50 to 200 Hz, and this upper limit of 200 Hz is quite an impressive value, because usually subwoofer provide adjustment up to 120, 150 and less often 180 Hz, and almost no one provided up to 200 Hz. This of course few people may need, but if you are looking for a subwoofer with maximum range coverage, then Velodyne is among the few. But if we look at its specs, we'll see that the frequency range with ±3 dB ripple is from 32 to 180 Hz, and with ±10 dB ripple it expands to values of 25 to 250 Hz. Just behind this panel is a 250 watts and 500 watts in peak amplifier that runs in Class D and has an overload protection circuit that prevents this amplifier from producing too much distortion. As we know, Velodyne are famous for their low distortion subwoofers. The system has a built-in DSP processor with the 5 preset settings: music, movie, night mode, rock pop and linear, which you can switch from its remote control. The remote control itself is quite ordinary, looking generic, but it has everything you might need. You can adjust the volume, crossover frequency, switch the phase, switch between its 5 DSP settings and increase or decrease LED intensity of front display and back panel's LEDs exhaustively. As for the sound, I tried it both in multi-channel cinema setup paired with a NAD receiver and in orthodox stereo, having assembled a triphonic with Bluesound power node amp and PSB Imagine X1T speakers. To be honest, I didn't expect anything special in the movie setup. However, it turned out that this subwoofer just works amazingly. It dumps some incredible amount of energy on you in the movies. So much tight, voluminous bass and so much impact that I didn't expect to get from Impact 10. Well, after all, it doesn't look like a giant, quite an ordinary nondescript box, but it shakes everything inside of you at once. My chair has become a massage chair. On some effects, it sometimes seems that the physics of space is changing from these sounds. And what is most impressive about this is the feeling of transparency, intelligibility in this sound. It changes the feeling of what is happening dramatically. It really impressed me and gave a lot of positive emotions and a couple of strong fears. It's just real goodness. When it comes to music, your experience will depend on what kind of music you listen to. Paired with the Bluesound amp, which is also a streamer, the Impact 10 performed very well overall for its price point. But there are a couple of nuances I need to tell you about. First, let's start with the fact that I set the subwoofer so that it wasn't audible in my system. I got almost 80 Hz at the crossover and the volume was no higher than a third of the range. I tried all the DSP settings. In particular, I was interested in the difference between them. I'm not a fan of embellishing the sound with an equalizer, but in this case I found these settings to work. Velodyne has been working for almost 40 years for good reason. All these settings are clearly calibrated. By default, I prefer to use the linear setting, in which there is no equalization and the lower limit remains at 15 Hz. But if you want to add a little drive, you can switch to music mode, in which the equalizer raises the area around 30 Hz by 4 dB, and in the rock pop mode, the lower limits rises to 28 Hz and equalization, also plus 4 dB, occurs around 50 Hz. If you like garage and psychedelic rock, I'll recommend you a wonderful band from Denmark called Baby Woodrose. These guys in some incredible way open a window to the 60s, and that window is incredibly exciting to look at from 21st century. This is my absolutely favorite band in this season. Their jagged vintage sound takes on more weight with music setting and more guitar drive with rock pop setting. I won't say that I would prefer to listen with these settings, but if I had a party, I would definitely switch this body to one of these. And although they don't make the sound more realistic, but I can't say that the equalization spoils it. They just give some kind of mood in just a couple of clicks if necessary. But even in linear mode you get more dynamics, more energy in all those dirty guitars and even in voices than without a subwoofer. But the most useful setting for me is night setting. Often I prefer to listen not very loudly, sometimes even quietly, and often I do it late at night. Therefore, the night mode, in which the Velodyne reduces the area around 35 Hz by -3 dB, is a real must-have for someone like me. The advantage of using a subwoofer, if it is properly tuned, in a stereo system is that you get more body in the sound, the virtual space becomes freer, the overall sound takes on a little more color, the system somehow breathes easier when there is subwoofer support, and Impact X undeniably gives it all. At low sound pressure levels, this support becomes even more noticeable and necessary, especially on some atmospheric music like the great soundtrack to the last season of Stranger Things. There everything is built on synthesizers, often going deep down the range, and here the help of subwoofer is more than ever suitable. However, in the evening, your beloved neighbor, tired by the end of the day from his morning entertainment with his huge drill, may not agree with this. Of course, I understand your desire to show him all the delights of Stranger Things, but sometimes life tells us, be above it. And when you decide to be above it all, night mode comes in handy. You're still enjoying the subwoofer you bought, but your neighbor isn't. It serves him right. Let it stay without cool music. Tonight you're the only one getting high. Now as to where you don't get as much joyride. The possibilities of Impact X on music are not unlimited, unlike cinema. And if you listen to different nonsense like the beautiful London band named Black Midi, giving birth to the wildest mixture of nervous avant-garde jazz with gypsy fun and rock and roll hangover. This is how they sound to me. So, in their craziest and most intense passages, you can see that Impact X, although trying its best, still doesn't keep pace with these London clerics. Some lag in the speed of the subwoofer compared to the speakers in some moments creates an effect similar to when part of the image loses focus. There is a feeling of veil in the sound. But if you aren't so immersed in such music, but live where the mainstream genres exist, then I think you won't even notice these problems. Another of its weak points I would note poor connectivity, compared to higher models that offer more different types of connections, such as balanced ones. And this low-key look and frankly inexpensive remote control won't suit to someone else. The rest of the Impact X is a great modern device. It's very easy to use thanks to the ability to configure it from the comfort of your chair. And its DSP presets are really helpful in different usage scenarios. And if you are looking for a good, versatile and comfortable subwoofer that will help you to get scared in the movies and enjoy your favorite music, then you can trust this job to the basic Velodyne. It knows its job and does it definitely well.